Hi, I'm Malika Gardner for the Leak. I am honored to have as my guest today for a real conversation, a rags to riches story, business developer, Mr. Kevin Gantos. Welcome, Mr. Gantos.
Well, great to be on today's call, my friend. How are you, Mrs. Gardner?
Fantastic, fantastic. The Leak normally, dives into entertainment news and gossip, but I started interviewing successful entrepreneurs and I've been getting some great feedback. The economy is definitely crying out for some wisdom, some new knowledge, new information, and I just want to continue providing inspiration to everyone who logs on to the Leak. So, Kevin Gantos, you are Mr. Entrepreneur. So, thank you so much for your time today.
My pleasure.
Now, I know, I've heard you speak many times. You've mentored a great deal of people into building wealth. A lot of us aren't, educated on building wealth. We're taught to go to school, get a job, you know, and life will be fine. But we know that in today's economy, that's just not true anymore. So I know that you did want to, you have some golden nuggets for students that'll be graduating college soon. And I think the wisdom that you're providing for them is just amazing. But I really want the Leak listeners to get an idea of who you are, your background, and it's a fascinating story. You started your first business when you were 8 years old, so it was already a sign to your mom. You come from a single parent home, that you were going to be, something amazing, a true businessman. And you went on to develop businesses across the country worth over $650 million. You've given over in Zambia, Africa, building ministries over there. So, I mean, you've done tremendous things with your wealth and just having a heart of gold. Um, I know everyone is wondering, how is money like that made? How do you go from a lawnmower business when you're 8 years old to developing businesses across the country worth multi millions of dollars?
Well, thank you for those kind words. First off, I'm humbled by them. I wasn't born where I had a plan. It wasn't like that at all. I think it comes down to how did I go from where I was at, where I'm at, and of course, obviously, I believe we're in humble beginnings as we speak. But you know, I think about my story is a lot like a lot of other people. I really do. And for the listeners out there, I'm speaking to you. You're that person that you went through school and you just felt I wouldn't say uncomfortable, but you're at school and you feel like you're bored and your brain's wandering and you're daydreaming, and I call that you got the bug. People are looking at you like there's something wrong with you, but in reality, you've got that entrepreneurial spirit. Because if you think about most of the people that have created incredible wealth throughout the planet, and I'm talking in a good way, it's not all about the bling and the materialism and everything attached. There's nothing wrong with that. It's the spoils of your hard labor. But it comes down to the fact that, you're identifying something in you where you don't fit into the status quo. Congratulations, you're part of the entrepreneurship group. And if we think about, you hear it over and over again, the Thomas Edisons and the Andrew Carnegies, and you hear about the Rockefellers and all of most of these people, right, didn't go all the way to school, or even at the modern day people, right? Most of them dropped out of college and all of that. What is that? I mean, why does that always seem to be the common denominator? Why are the A students working for the C students, right? And as Robert Kiyosaki likes to say, from Rich Dad, Poor Dad, same kind of individual. It's because I believe all of us were destined for greatness. And there's nothing wrong with being employed. That's not what today's conversation is about at all. There's nothing wrong if that's part of your plan. For some people, that's all they want, and that's okay. I mean, someone has to put the umbrella in the drink when you're sitting on the beach. But, at the end of the day, it comes down to you being able to say, when I think about the 50 million students in colleges today in the United States, and the fact that a lot of them have taught to go to school, to get the good job, it's really about grooming. That came from an industrialized age, is what that came from. We had big business, big corporations, they needed employees. And in my reality, I feel it created another welfare system. People just actually left their homes and of course started working for somebody else, and they took on new parents, their employer. But the entrepreneur is the person that's not afraid to wake up every day unemployed, because that's in essence what you're doing as an entrepreneur. You're someone that has vision. You want to go out and make things different in life. You want to advance society forward. And so there's a lot of kids today, Malika, that I think about that are in these colleges. It's great that they're learning and educating. I believe in education. I'm an insatiable reader. I like to read at least a new book, if not 2 a week. Sometimes I'll read a book in a day. Obviously, time alone. But if I think about the person that's out there listening in, your audience, which I believe for the most part are being caught up in maybe somebody else's wealth, as you said, you obviously come from a Hollywood side as well. People are caught up into that. But what they don't realize is they can be the star of their own movie. And it's about being proactive in their own financial rescue. And so growing up, being raised by a single mom and not having all the things that I didn't know we didn't have the right things. I thought that was normal. I know there's a lot of people listening in that feel the same way. We thought it was normal to have a lock on the refrigerator. But when it was things by pain management is what I call it. When I went to school and the kids sometimes be really brutal. You wear pants that are 6 inches too short. At home it didn't matter, but when you go to school it matters. And so you start figuring out ways. Well, I don't want that kind of pain, so I'll figure out a way to make money so I can buy my own clothes without hurting my mother, making her feel like she could provide for us. So I would go out and figure out ways to make money, and that's where the entrepreneur spirit came. And we're talking about mowing lawns. Plenty of people that probably mow lawns or shovel snow or rake leaves, whatever you need to do. It gave me a whole new feeling of freedom. I didn't feel trapped. And so, Malika, I know you're an incredible entrepreneur, and I know you can relate to this. I mean, who goes from Chicago, flies out to Hollywood by herself, right, and starts opening up businesses, and now all of a sudden a journalist and an interviewer and already talking to people like Jesse Jackson and all these people that are coming around you. That's an entrepreneur spirit. Either you have it or you don't. And so when I think about these kids that are going through the system was designed to grab the revenue from the working people, is really what it is. You think about company housing back in the day where people worked at the mines, right, and they were given a company house. It's what's happening today. The child gets out, goes through school, gets groomed, understands how to sit in the classroom, understands how to listen, but at the end of the day, they're being groomed to be employed. But if we look at employment for the youth, that's at an all-time high, not the statistics that we see in the media, because that's been tainted as well. It really comes down to the fact that most of the kids going to school that are encumbering themselves with this new financial bondage, right, that's going to actually be weight on the back to force them to go and get a job because they have to pay the education bill, is unacceptable. And it's by design. And the reason why I say that is, why are most things allowed to be thrown into a bankruptcy, but not a student loan? School is big business. The traditional sense of school, college is big business. And again, this is not a bash on schooling at all. It's the system of people being taken into that and saying they have to do that. The second thing that stands out now, this individual, obviously has a student loan. They have to have transportation, so they go out and buy a car. Well, most people don't have the resources to pay cash for the car, so they go out and they get a loan. And now we have 2 bills in their life that didn't exist before. And now they go out there and now they have to pay the bank to have the car. And it's no accident that the car is only designed to have a shelf life. Once the loan's paid off, it's typically not worth as much, right? So now we have that planned obsolescence in the vehicle. Why? Because the industry says we want you to buy new cars, right? Keep the economy going. This individual now finally gets a job. And 9 times out of 10, they're getting a job for something they weren't even trained for, meaning they went to school, they got a degree, and the job they were going to school for doesn't even exist. And if we look at unemployment rate, most people, they don't share is the fact that these students are now going into menial jobs. They're getting minimum wage jobs, which PhDs and masters. And now they are, right? They don't want to be alone the rest of their life, so they find a significant other. And maybe as the status quo goes, they find that soulmate, they get married, they have a child, and all of a sudden the 1-bedroom apartment doesn't work, now maybe a couple bedrooms, and then they say, well, they want their kids to grow up in a nice environment, and so now they get a house. They go out and get the house, and now can people pay cash for the house? No. So they go get another loan for housing. So now they got a loan for the car. They got a loan for the house. Now they got utilities. They got all these things. And now both people have to work to pay the bill. And now the child's being raised as a latchkey kid, and we wonder why we have issues in today's society. So, Malika, my cause, my passion in life really is how do we nip that in the bud? It comes down to the mission statement. And, you know, I'm about ministry. I'm not here to instill it on anybody, but number one is to fund worthy ministries worldwide. Two is to empower people to live an abundant life, freeing clear of any financial bondage. Three is to raise up an army of godly leaders all over the world, right? Mm-hmm. And the key to comes down is to teach each family how to have a net worth of $1 million and an annual residual income of $100,000, living totally debt-free. Obviously, to bring mom back home first, followed by dad, so our future generations don't have to look beyond the front door for a role model. That's really the key. How do we fix the kids from being shot in the streets in every kind of neighborhood throughout the United States, where we've got gang warfare out there because there's no parents at home? If these kids were truly loved and had parents to raise them, they didn't have to look beyond the front door for a role model. I believe our culture would be a little bit different. Mm. So as we unwind this mission statement, it really comes down to how do we fix the problem at hand. And so now the key to is now we take these kids as entrepreneurs and we teach them how to start their own businesses, right? And maybe for a lot of them, it's a direct selling industry. Why? Because I believe it's a great place for people to develop a skill set with minimal cost. And they get surrounded by the right people. So now they get elevated to the top of the compensation plan and earn the respect of their peers, right? And then they go out there instead of doing the 2-week cruise and all of that. Not that that's a problem, but now they go out and they decide to go do ministry. And maybe it's in the mission fields of Africa where they're out there. And they get inspired to serve well in the ministry. And they bring that conviction back to the leadership where they built villages in their organization. And now, of course, we roll out a program that funds ministry. How do we do that? By everybody doing a little bit. So now we have 100,000 people donating $10 a month. There's millions of dollars going to the ministry. And people say, well, what is all that about? It's about the whole process. See, if we can take these households, Malika, and these young guys coming up and girls coming up through that, and realize that it's okay to have children raised by their parents. And for the most part, the financial plans and strategies that we have in place allows these people, instead of the typical couple at work, where they're not allowed, where they're not around for their children, they're teaching their children to do the same for their children, their grandchildren. But the trap really comes into, when we look at that, most people are going to take 30 years to pay off one house. I believe in teaching people strategy to where they'll have 5 homes free and clear and the primary residence free and clear, right, in 25 years, and have a net worth of $1 million and an annual residual income of $100,000, living totally debt-free for the rest of their lives. What would people do with that freedom? They'd be out in ministry. They'd be out there for the people that don't have that lifestyle. They'd be in the streets of Chicago helping those innocent kids that are being shot because the gang members are saying the only way to become a true gang member is to go shoot innocent children. That's how we fix those things. Mm-hmm. Because the reason why they're not being fixed is everybody's too busy chasing the dollar. They're too busy trying to maintain the lifestyle when they need to be out there in the streets helping people and raising people up through example. You know, if I give somebody a loaf of bread in the streets, right, I just created welfare. They're going to look at me for that loaf of bread, and they might even say that loaf of bread wasn't that great, and all of a sudden there's an entitlement mentality. When we could raise one person out of those streets and show them how wealth has gone, where they've gone from humble beginnings to wealth, and now they're giving back to the community, what happens when that starts growing exponentially and starts duplicating? Now we fix what? We fix the home. And from the home, we fix the neighborhood. From the neighborhood, we fix the city. From the city, we fix the state. From the state, we fix the country. From the country, we fix the planet. Mother Teresa's and all of that we hear about, and all the people that are out there serving in a big way. Martin Luther King, incredible individual, right? What was it all about? Robert Kennedy, all of these people, was all about serving the people. That's what leads to greatness. And the only way for the youth to understand that is to be caught up in the culture because someone's finally pouring into those lives. And the only way to pour into those lives is to have wealth as an issue out of the way. And I believe the greatest community to build that is basically ministry in the marketplace. That's really the key. What happens if we start changing things?
Basically, everything that's really going on in the streets, not just Chicago, but with a lot of the young people, is just poverty driven. If they had the information and there were resources at home where the parents could stay home and actually pour into the children, we wouldn't have the issues that we're having in most of the major cities in the country. Um, how to get that information to them is the question. How do we get that to them? And many are so brainwashed into thinking that money has to be made a certain way. You know, um, like college is the key. Definitely, I'm not knocking, college education either, but many of them believe that that is going to be the saving grace. At one time it was, but, as we had talked about, it's really not that life jacket anymore, that promise anymore. And then others believe, going into the entertainment industry, that's going to be the saving grace, or the sports industry. Uh, do you have any ideas, any suggestions how we could get wealth building, wealth principles, that entrepreneurial spirit into those communities to help these young children?
Absolutely. I really believe when I think about the leaders, I'm going to obviously go off into a little bit of a tangent here because I really believe in all the businesses I've been blessed to build and develop. The reason why I'm so passionate about the network marketing industry is because it's a place for people to develop skill sets. It's a place to take the underdog and align them with the right product or business and being surrounded by the right people. And these people that are out there building this village that they're building within a business structure, right, allows these people to also realize that they can mirror that into a community. It's really about taking these kids. See, when you talk about education, I talk about education. We know we got listeners that are gnashing their teeth a little bit about education. Look, it's not about education. Education is there to develop skill sets, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's all part of it. Maybe you're working a job because you need to make some money along the way. As long as it's part of the bigger picture, getting the information out to the children that are in these neighborhoods and all of that, it's about raising somebody up out of that neighborhood. So I think about a dear friend of mine who's a bus driver, right, out of the hoods of Maryland, right, he had the ability to be that bus driver, but because he was being able to raise up to an industry that coddled them and raised them up and surrounded by the right people, today he's a published author. Today he's in those neighborhoods giving back to those communities. And now all of a sudden his story, see, I believe more can be done through inspiration. I can give somebody a loaf of bread, or we can inspire someone to take those people out of the communities. And what's going to happen is you've got the drug lord in that neighborhood, right? And you've got Johnny over here that was part of that, but now he's raised up, and now he surpasses what the drug lord did, right? As far as a quality of life, a lifestyle, and everything like that. That's going to make some kids turn their heads. It's going to take those kind of people. Yes, will there be a sacrifice? Did Martin Luther King get shot in his cause? Absolutely. Will that happen? Yes. But they're being shot anyway. Mm-hmm. So getting the information out today in our day and age where social media allows that and programs like this is allowing us to get out there and to plant our flag and to create a cause that's in the right direction and getting back to the morality that this nation was built on. Let's start with that.
Mm. Yes, and I think people need to see. I think it's more inspirational when people hear about, as you say, the rags to riches stories, those who came up, from nothing, from absolutely nothing. And I love it when you tell the story of, your mom locking the refrigerator, to make sure the food is rationed out, so that you all, are sure to eat the next day. Just hearing stories like that and then seeing where you are today, the big, beautiful mansion in Southern California, right there in the wine vineyards, it's just a remarkable story. And you're not out there in the limelight where you're not touchable. So I just think it's so important that kids can see that you don't have to be this famous star, this athlete, this entertainer, that there's a lot of millionaires out there, a lot of successful people making a lot of money, and you don't have to be a star. Matter of fact, people like yourself will probably remain wealthy, long past many of the entertainers and athletes that they worship. Um, I know one of the materials that you have recommended, um, Men Who Built America. Now, I watched those DVDs about Vanderbilt, Rockefeller, Carnegie, Ford, and JP Morgan, and it was so inspiring. And it definitely speaks to the entrepreneur because those men, they were all about a concept, a vision, an idea, and even through the failures and the mistakes, they kept going. And I mean, they pretty much, you know, a lot of that we have today is based off of their efforts and their ideas and just not giving up. Um, when you go around the country, because I know you travel the country just trying to share information with adults, I know you're wanting more to focus on kids that are coming out of college and even younger children so that, they can get this information early. But you travel the country speaking to adults, just trying to get them to wake up, that they can no longer rely on one source anymore. I mean, how is that struggle, that journey been just talking to adults who are clearly wanting, you know, uh, wanting new information about making money, but something about that fear of stepping into the unknown. Can you speak on that?
Absolutely. It reminds me of a story that I heard a long time ago, and hopefully the audience will be able to understand this story. But it impacted me. It's a very simple story, but it impacted me. It really made a point. And the story goes that it's a beautiful summer evening. A gentleman's taking a walk down his neighborhood. It's an older neighborhood where there are porches on the front of the houses, and you got to step up to the porch and all of that. And the trees, you can hear the wind blowing through the trees, and he's just taking a beautiful stroll. Off in the distance, he's hearing this dog howling. And he just keeps hearing the dog howling. And as he's taking a walk, it gets louder and louder and louder. Sure enough, he gets to the house where the dog is howling, and it's laying on the top step. And it's just moaning. And this guy's sitting in his chair, and he's whittling a piece of wood. He's got the corncob pipe in his mouth kind of stuff. And the guy is just curious. The dog just keeps moaning. He goes, I couldn't help but hear your dog moaning. He goes, why is he moaning? And the guy responds with a little bit of an accent, goes, well, he's lying on a nail. He goes, well, why doesn't the dog get up? Well, it hurts him enough to make a moan, but not enough for him to get up. And the parallel in that story is, as I travel around the country and I talk to people, there's people that moan, but they're not uncomfortable enough to get up. And no matter what we do statistically, right, if we look at the national average, we take 100 people, and this is research time and time and time again, over many years of research, it typically works out one person's going to retire totally wealthy. 4 are going to be able to live on their retirement very well. And the other 95 out of 100 are going to be dependent on family, friends, and the federal government. We think about the people that are going through, playing football in the backyards, and the dream is to be in the NFL. Not everybody gets in the NFL. We think about the kids who are playing in the basements and the garages out there, want to be a rock star one day. Not everybody becomes the rock star. When we think about those things, it really comes down to the person I'm talking to. You know who you are. You're sick and tired of being sick and tired. If I think about the industry that's creating the most wealth right now, right? I think about an EJ, a friend of mine that's been in this country about 10 years from the Philippines. He said to be born into poverty is not our fault, but to die in poverty is. And that's so profound. This person's actually opening up a nation of 100 million people and introducing them through entrepreneurship, right? When in fact he was living underneath the steps of his friend's house for many years in the United States, working at the sushi shop. What made that person different than somebody else? There's other people that have been given more and have done less with it. I really believe, Malika, it comes down to that person that's in the audience is that entrepreneur. They're hurting. They might be laying in bed. Nobody even knows they're hurting, but they're laying in bed at night feeling insecure and hoping there's a better way. And there's, in fact, a better way. And so, when I think about that person that's out there that's got that true entrepreneur spirit, that's just who you are. And you're going to find out any way you can to educate yourself to get it. But you're just looking for those people that are willing to come alongside you and to help you move along until you start flying on your own. If you take the true story of, obviously, an eagle, when eaglets are born, there's, the mother eagle goes in there, and this is true stuff, and they actually go in there and they put the feathers in there, the down and everything, and that nest is so comfortable when those little chicks are taken care of and food's brought to them and they're fed and everything like that. But did you know that the eagle, right, typically flies solo and gets the best lift in a storm, right? But those little eaglets feel comfortable in the nest, and as time goes on, the mother eagle starts taking the feathers out, and the eaglets are going, that's a little bit uncomfortable, right? And then they think the mother went crazy, because eventually what happens is the mother kicks the eaglets out of the nest, and they're falling to their death. But what happens is all of a sudden they take that flight for the first time, and now they start soaring and flying through the sky. And so there's got to be people that are listening in on this. The entrepreneur that's going to change the planet, right, is the person that's going to play the blame game. They're not going to blame the presidents. They're not going to blame, the culture, the economy, everything like that. They're going to go out and create their own economy.
Mm-hmm.
And that takes the right spirit. See, I believe that's who you are, and many people are. But they just need a coach to come alongside of them and to really say, you know what, bottom line is, there's a better way. Let's get you into a system where you're taking that knowledge and you're applying it, not just reading it. Because applying knowledge is power, not just book knowledge. If I gave everybody a book on how to swim that's listening in on this, right, how to swim, we can all agree you don't know anything about swimming until you jump in the water, correct?
Right.
So that's the key to this. It's really about people being able to reach out and know there's real entrepreneurs that want to help them. And there's all kinds of resources all over the place. But most people, like you said, how do we get that into the community? And the only way for them to know that is to raise someone out of that community and do more with inspiration.
I love that. To be born into poverty is not your fault. To die in poverty is your fault. That's deep. That is pretty deep. Now, I know, Kevin, you are a wealth coach. I know that there's many people out there with a lot of questions, wanting to talk to you and connect with you and get some questions answered and get some more information. I'm going to give them some contact information for you. K Gantos, that's K as in Kevin, Gantos, Gantos, at AOL.com. And you can also reach him at 951-852-2477. Again, that's 951-852-2477. You are an amazing wealth coach. I mean, there's so many testimonies out there across the country about you and your integrity and your rawness. I mean, you give it to people very, very real about how they operate in business and just getting started. And people do need that. So, one, I just want to applaud you for all of your accomplishments and just going out there and helping people. I think more than anything with you, you stand out more as just someone who truly, truly gives back. Truly gives back. Your stories of going over to Zambia, Africa, and just building ministries over there is just, admirable. And your generosity is just absolutely commendable. I mean, it's just amazing. So you are definitely that example of, a blessing isn't a blessing unless it can be passed forward, And your family, all of them are just in business with you, and they're building with you. What is your advice to people, because it's a lot of families out there who are just struggling. So it's always that one person that has to jump in first to, get a business going and get that extra income going into the household. But what's your advice to bringing families into being coached by you?
Well, I tell you, again, it's what we talked about earlier. It's about inspiration. A lot of people for a long time, there's going to be people that you look up to in your life, And as you look up to them in your life, you're going to say, wow, I can't wait to be there. And then one day you're going to turn around and those people are going to be looking up to you. And the only reason that's going to happen is because through your tenacity, your stick-to-itiveness, to be able to go out there and say, I've got a vision, I've got a dream that I want to pursue. And someone sitting down with that person saying, okay, let's do that. Prime example, tomorrow morning I have 2 meetings, right? And 2 different kinds of people from totally different walks of life. One person has like $500,000 that they want to make sure they're sound with. Another person that has a great career but, feels trapped in the career. And it's going to be with the end in mind. And so even if you're in a family, people are going to get caught up in your success. Now, you would think that everybody would rally around you in your success, but unfortunately that's not always the case. And the reason why, it's not that the people don't love you. They're just afraid that you're going to leave them, so they want to do everything they can to keep you back. In my family, as you shared about my family, it's always been about, they've seen the journey. They've seen the humble beginnings, and they've seen the tenacity and the pursuit of following a vision and a dream and never giving up on that. And that's attractive to the right people. Key, attractive to the right people. Mm-hmm. And so as you do that, you by default, you become the patriarch in the family because you set yourself apart. It's what you're doing in your culture. I guarantee it. Like I know you're an entrepreneur, and the entrepreneurs that are on this line, you know exactly who I'm talking to. You just can't get it out of your system. And don't think there's something wrong with you if you don't fit in, right? It's a blessing. It's truly a blessing. Is the price going to be paid? Absolutely. Will it be worth it? Yes, because at the end of your life, when you're looking back, you're going to be glad you did, as opposed to saying, I wish I had.
Right. Coulda, woulda, shoulda.
It's all about inspiration.
That's right. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Gantos. What do we have to look forward to? I know you have an organization, the Dynasty Group, that's doing some giving back across the country and spreading knowledge and information to families who are truly in need of new information about building wealth or just making some money, some extra money out there. What do you have in store next for the Dynasty Group?
Well, I mean, it comes down to raising up an army of leaders worldwide. Mm. That's what I see. I want those stories to be there. I want to be... True leadership is being a facilitator to raising up true leaders. Mm. If you're a leader and you have a bunch of followers, you're not a leader. Mm. If you're a leader and you're raising up an army of leaders, you're truly a leader. Mm. And so that's really the objective here, where people can fly independent on their own, and we're just facilitators, ushering people along to their success, whatever that is to them. Okay, well, thank you. Go ahead. Did you have some? And you say, what can we expect down the road? And that is obviously people are telling me to over and over again to publish a book and do this DVD. I just don't want to be one of those stereotype book tape people, right? But I understand that it allows us to help people in a different way by providing those resources. So that's what's coming down the road. Okay? Okay, well, we're looking forward to it, and thank you again for all your contributions to the country and helping and saving a lot of families out there, providing them education and knowledge in terms of building wealth. And again, for those of you who are interested in wealth coaching or just have some questions, about your personal situation, how you can get out of that, and what you can do, what options you have out there, and just seeking some knowledge, some information, you can reach out to Kevin Gantos. Again, his email is kgantos@aol.com, and his number is 951-852-2477. Thank you again, Mr. Gantos. It's always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for your time today. And to everyone out there listening to the Leik, stay tuned. We have some more amazing individuals coming on. Thank you again, Mr. Gantos. And you're welcome, Monica. You take care now. Always a pleasure talking with you. Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.